what in the world is parts work, right?
Right. Yeah. What is this? And why do I need to connect with my younger self? Talk therapy is a lot about changing your mindset. That is a good thing. Changing your mindset is great, but we actually can't change the mindset if we are bypassing the emotions.
So going back to you as a child and being there for her in the way that she needed.
I'm afraid about this because I've had this experience in my life.
When things like that happen, a part of us is created to help us survive and cope.
Oh, I've got this kind of thread that just kind of seems to stick around, and I don't know that I like it.
You can look at other people's behavior and realize when they treat you a certain way or act a certain way. That's not me. That's them and their parts coming up.
I would not change any of it because I wouldn't know what I know, and I cannot give up what I know.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Seth, and this is The Forever Young Show. The most powerful force in this world is a woman who knows who she is, why she is here, and what she wants to accomplish.
And that's where self-care comes in. As a woman, it is my opportunity and my responsibility to take care of me.
Self-care for your mind.
Self-care for your body.
Self-care for your money.
Our mission is to serve women as they fulfill their irreplaceable roles in families, society, business, the fabric of humanity.
So let's get this show on the road.
We have Roxanne Granata here. She is a nervous system coach specializing in internal family systems who helps successful women who, despite thriving in many areas of their lives, still feel stuck, overwhelmed, and alone, even when surrounded by others.
I know a lot of women in that situation.
Yes.
Her own journey of healing from betrayal trauma led her to a deeper understanding of how unresolved parts of ourselves can hold us back.
Roxanne is the author of Cutting Ties, Healing Betrayal Trauma as the Spouse of an Addict.
She also hosts the Choose In podcast, which, by the way, is awesome. Streamed on all platforms, I'm guessing, Roxanne, Spotify, Apple, everywhere.
Yep,
amazing.
everywhere.
Amazing. We're going to get into that because I had my own little revelations here listening to the podcast. Roxanne is Roxanne is trauma-informed certified, has spent 10 plus years healing, studying, and staying current on the latest advancements in nervous system healing.
Through her work, she empowers women to break free from internal struggles, heal their nervous systems, and create lasting transformation. She does this through one-on-one coaching and high-level group programs. Roxanne, we're so excited to have you here. Thank you
Seth
so much.
and Stephanie, I'm so glad to be here with you.
So, Roxanne, what are you most passionate about right now, and what are you doing about it?
Wow. So for my work, most passionate just about the women that I get to meet and how each time we go into their system that they're in, their parts work, the things that are going on with them, each and every time we have a breakthrough. Each and every time they find a part of them and they leave the call feeling like there's hope, there's healing, they're going to be okay, and they have their next step for their direction.
I love this. In fact, I am a client, and I can testify that all of that is true. I absolutely love the work that she helps me do and how I'm feeling now and how I'm growing and learning alongside her. And it's a beautiful gift.
I love working with you, Stephanie. And it's just like you are exactly the client that I guess models what I do because you are a woman who wants to thrive, who wants to progress in life, who loves learning, who has so many things going for her. And you are just like everyone else. And sometimes women think that they are alone or they think that, no, I shouldn't be like this, but that's not true. We all are. And you are someone who takes the steps.
Thank you.
Amen. Amen. I actually love it when y'all do sessions, because I do. Because Stephanie and I think most of the time we get to have a really great conversation afterwards. Like, hey, met with Roxanne today, and here's what we talked about, and this self-discovery and healing and recognition and like like, I don't remember a time when we haven't had an amazing conversation or an amazing report after you do parts work.
Yeah.
Like, it's work, but it's like you come out of it with this high, this
Yeah,
insight,
well, it's
and
revelatory, right?
I
She
was
has
gonna
a
say
revelatory
edification.
experience. Yeah, and then she gets to
Yes.
come talk to you, and that's so cool in your guys' relationship, which is what a lot of my clients want, is to have a person they can talk to. So the fact that she can come and say, "Listen to what I heard, learned, found out about myself," and you guys can talk about it is just the best. That's gonna give hope to other people, just knowing that.
So, like, on that note, like, can you, Steph, take us there? And we're gonna get in depth with Roxanne here, but, like, this is really personal for you now, right? You've done lots of different types of therapies,
Yes.
right, and healing modalities, and I think, even in the introduction, and Roxanne, I think this is unique. A lot of times we talk about therapy, or different modalities, but something that jumped out to me is, as we talk about therapy, we're also talking about nervous system healing, and I've never heard it put that way. I've never really seen the connection, and this may just be my own ignorance. I mean, I feel like we're on Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other, right? I am kind of the odd man out here, but a lot of times we'll talk about therapy. We'll talk about talk therapy. We'll talk about counseling, or we'll talk about somatic healing and nervous system. And for me, this is kind of a little mini revelation. Wait a second. We're talking about parts work and some of this internal work and nervous system healing, because they're connected. I
Mhm.
don't think I'd ever really thought about it that way before.
Yeah. Yeah, they're connected. I'm trying to think of like what your question is and how much I can share, because a lot of that really is super personal and deep. I find that a lot of, at least the things that we talk about, is typically from childhood, and it's going back and meeting yourself at that time and figuring out, I guess, maybe how something affected your nervous system and how you needed something. I don't know. Am I making sense?
Yeah, like I'm girlfriend. I am picking up what you're throwing down.
Okay. So going back to you as a child, whichever age that is, and meeting her there and being there for her in the way that she needed. So, validating her, talking to her about maybe how it should have been different in a healthier way. Um, and also something that we've done a lot of is showing that little girl where I'm at now. I think that the last couple sessions have been really powerful for me, saying, yeah, you did go through these experiences and they were really traumatic. And also look at where we're at now. Because you went through that and you've done the steps to heal, um, you know, you do feel amazing and you are being successful in different areas, motherhood or marriage or, I don't know, business outside in the community and things.
That's amazing. I'll add some things about that because Seth, you were talking about nervous system healing and how parts work. I'll just say how that kind of aligns together. And then Stephanie is sharing kind of her experience. So to kind of catch your listeners up on what are we even talking about, right? Like this is like, I don't know what they're saying. I mean, I like it and I want my inner child to heal, but I don't really understand how or why or what or even the process. So if you
Like, what in
want,
the world is parts work, right?
right. Yeah. What is this? And why do I need to connect with my younger self and tell her who I am today? Like that just seems very foreign to somebody who is like, I don't know what you're saying. Right. So if you want, I can kind of
Yeah.
just go into that a little bit for you guys, if that would help.
Well, I think that's super helpful because, again, amongst the many modalities that people have tried, right? Some successfully. Like, I think we can both say that. Talk therapies, uh, and different types of counseling. I don't think many people know about parts work. You and I, Steph, we'll often talk with women as we work with women in the business world and personal relationships. And I think you'll say parts work. And I don't know that very many people A few know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, very few. So yes, it would be super helpful to explain to our guests what that is.
Yeah. I mean, all the therapy has a place, right? And
Mm.
when I was growing up, I had learned what was modeled for me was that you don't go to the counseling, that you don't seek therapy because it brings up stuff that isn't real or it makes you hash out things that just need to stay down. Like, we don't need to talk about that because then we'll remember and then our marriages will end or things like that. Right. And so
Total
I didn't
fear-based.
100% fear-based because, I mean, if a marriage is supposed to end, it's gonna end, and we're gonna either end in a healthy way or we're not, right? So, it's keeping it stuck doesn't help anybody. But, I was introduced to therapy from somebody who felt inspired to say, "I think I'm supposed to tell you that I see a therapist," and I was like, "That was my answer," and so I started, and I was, like, 40. So, that was, like, 12 years ago, and that was, like, the most amazing experience of my life to go into therapy, it was talk therapy, and share, and then be validated that what I was feeling was correct and that that would make sense, and what I was going through was not okay, right? So, there was a definite place for that. The issue or the thing that is, coming to light more now about just talk therapy is the whole concept of, uh talk therapy is a lot about changing your mindset, and that is a good thing. Changing your mindset is great, but we actually can't change the mindset if we are bypassing the emotions. If we're
Yeah.
we're not going into the emotions or why we feel that way, it's almost like white knuckling it. I am going to feel better today and I'm not going to be sad today and I'm whatever. We're just like gripping it to death until we crash and burn. So that is the talk therapy world is kind of a top down approach. We start at the mind and then we work and then we heal the body. But nervous system healing is opposite. It's a bottom up approach. So we actually go into the body, find what we're feeling, find the stress and the anxiety and the insecurities and the fears and all the doubts, everything, the overwhelm, the stuff that every single one of us feel at different times. And we find out what? Why are we afraid? And usually it's something to do with I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of how money's going to work. Like, what if I don't have the money I need? We're normally afraid of something. I mean, most of the time, a lot of the time. But that's where our parts live. Our parts are in those emotions that were created at a time when we were younger. And we can go into that in a second. But that's just the base. So, as far as why, we go into the emotions, we find these parts that have these emotions, we heal them, and then we can get the mind on board to then start practicing the affirmations and the things that are going to help us. But it heals the emotions first.
So in this case, would we say that those emotions probably born from experiences uh, are kind of at the core?
Yep.
Like
And think
sometimes we
about it. Like, when are you guys, like, if you're stressed about something, are you just stressed in your brain or is your heart racing? Do you feel panic? Do you feel anxiety? Do your shoulders get tight and you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders? Does that
right.
make sense?
Yes. Usually it's
Yeah.
my stomach. Like
Mm.
I will start bloating or things like that if I get really, really stressed.
And Seth, what about you? Have you gotten to that point where you notice what, like, oh my gosh, I'm stressed right now? Or is it just in your head still?
No, I think more so than I would probably admit, like that I need help.
Everybody does.
You
Everybody does.
know,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I think it's something I've actually started to be more cognizant of in the last 10 years, probably since I met this beautiful woman who
Uh-huh.
has been like a daily dose of therapy, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, for me, but yeah, being aware of, oh, you know what? I'm feeling really anxious right now. It's not just high level, what I'm thinking. It is deeper and emotional and oh, yeah, I'm afraid about this because I've had this experience in my life, and I've got this, like, underlying current of fear because well, I don't maybe know because of why, but, oh, I've got this kind of thread that just kinda seems to stick around, and I don't know that I like it, right? So
Right. It's uncomfortable, right? It's not a comfortable feeling. And for a long time, kind of what you said, like you would think about it up in your head, like, oh my gosh, I'm stressed. And now you're making that connection that you actually feel something from that stress, not just, you don't just know it in your head. You're feeling something. You're feeling it, I don't know, anything. So with parts, it's kind of like our parts are younger. This is where, through all the different ages that we have these learning milestones. And so let's just say when we're like an infant or toddler, that's when we're getting our nurturing. That's when we're knowing that we're safe. That's when certain things happen. So when we aren't, for example, and it doesn't even have to be anything big. It can be just that my mom let me cry all the time, or my mom put me in my room when I cried, and I was 2 and I didn't know what to do with that. Okay, so it doesn't have to be like a big trauma. When things like that happen, a part of us is created to help us survive and cope. And so what happens is then we have a belief. So, for example, when I was 3, I think I was 3, maybe a little bit less, I was stubborn. I was 3, right? And my mom did put me in my room because I was um, probably having a tantrum. She wrote it in my baby book, and this is why I know this part. But she said I put her in her room, and I told her that when she's happy, she can come out. So I'm 3 or so, right? 2 or 3. And when I was working on that part, I could see myself in the room, not the actual room, but I could just see this little person of me standing there looking around going, I'm supposed to be happy. I can't go out until I'm happy, but I'm not happy and I don't know how to do that. Nobody's teaching me how to do this. They just put me in here and said, be happy. So if I want to go back out with my parents where that feels safe, then I have to be happy. So with that, what I believed at that time was I cannot show my emotions. I cannot be sad, upset, whatever. I have to be happy if I want to be by my parents. So that was kind of the beginning of me not sharing with them how I felt, not crying in front of them, like literally feeling like I was alone to navigate this. So over the years, we do that. Somebody embarrasses us. We're drawing a picture and somebody laughs at us, and we thought we were the best drawer. And now we are like embarrassed and we have all this shame. And we're like, I'm not the best drawer. I thought I was the best drawer. And now there's a part that's created again at that age. And she says, I will never let you feel like this again. So as you grow up, let's just say I want to do something, perform in something at 22. She will pop up and be like, absolutely not. No way. My job is to keep you safe from being embarrassed. So that's the importance of doing our work, is that those younger versions of us, those parts that created some sort of belief based on our experience, will continue to be triggered over and over and over till the day we die if we don't go find them, sit with them, give them what they need, assure them so that they can be like, oh, okay, and then calm down. So that they might be triggered over something, but not to the point where they take us, like they take over. It paralyzes us. One of the statistics is that we make 95% of our decisions from our subconscious and only 5% from our conscious. That means my 7-year-old self, who doesn't want to be embarrassed, is going to make my decisions for me at 52 if I do not help her.
I've never heard it put that way, but
Yeah.
I've lived a lot of that. Is this an oversimplification, Roxanne? I feel like you just explained the entire movie Inside Out for me.
That is it. Inside Out 2 is exactly what I do. Inside Out 2, I mean, it's obviously the first one too, but the second one really brings it together. Did you guys see the second one?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Anxiety.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Exactly
Oh, my
that, and
goodness.
she starts driving. Do you remember at the end, she's holding onto that handle and she's like, right? She is not letting go, and all the other parts are like, what do we do, right? That's exactly what happens. But when we heal those parts and sit with them, then we're all working together. It's not about healing them so they go away. They're a part of us. They've always been a part of us, and they actually don't hate us. It feels like it sometimes, but they actually love us, and they're working overtime to help us feel better. And that's what anxiety was doing in that movie until she calmed down and she took her hands off that control bar. And then everybody could come around her and take her in and hug her. And their nervous system is now regulated.
But we're a happy family instead of dysfunctional parts, right? Yeah, I love that movie. I absolutely love both 1 and 2. Laughed our heads off.
Yes, we
Yeah.
did.
So funny.
And we're like, they need to make an adult one now. Adult version.
Yep, for sure.
It's safe to say then that these and you helped, I've been saying parts work for some time now, but you helped define for me that, oh, these parts are parts of me that have been kind of brought into an influential place in my emotional control center because of situations. And there's the 5-year-old Seth, that had this experience, and then there's the I had this experience come back to me when I was in 6th grade, so I must be 12, in front of the entire, and you're 6th grader in the elementary school. You're
You're big time.
You're big time.
Well, it depends on who you are.
Seth was big time. Seth, he
Seth
got to be
was.
big time. Hey.
Au contraire, I want to hear your side of this story. I want to hear everybody's story. Let's share. No, you're supposed to be big time, but at that point in my life, all these kids are starting to change, and I'm not starting to change. I was a super late bloomer, right? Like we could instead of talking about 6th grade, we could talk about 12th grade, because I was still probably in the same situation, right? You're supposed to be big, big girl, big man on campus. But I remember 6th grade, one of the shorter kids, definitely one of the shorter kids, and just always trying to keep up, and being in front of the entire school for an assembly, and with the band, because I played band, and I played the coolest instrument in the band, which is, of course,
The saxophone.
the saxophone.
Awesome.
Like, hello, like maybe drums is pretty cool too, but the saxophone was the coolest instrument. And I pushed my parents really to get the saxophone, and I had a solo in front of the entire student body. And I got up there and I practiced, and I got up there and I just, I honked. Like, I tried to get this note out and honk and honk and honk. And I just remember the incredible embarrassment. I actually got through it. I got to that next note and moved on. But as you were talking about parts, I
That's
can
what came up.
see, maybe that part of me, totally embarrassed, in front of everybody on display, and maybe didn't perform, and didn't have anything to fall back on. Like, I wasn't big, I wasn't tough, I wasn't strong. Like, I felt totally vulnerable,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
interesting.
So those things like that come up like that, those are the things that that stick with us when we've had these kind of moments that are kind of pivotal in our life, where all of a sudden you can just recall it, and maybe you even feel it. I don't know if you feel it at all, like, oh my gosh, I remember that day. That was so embarrassing. I don't know, does it affect you still today? Do you still feel a little embarrassed by that day or not really?
Um, I think when I think about that, I can feel some of the emotions about how embarrassing that was. Like, I'm feeling it right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
and I've also had different experiences over the years that have been in different environments, but similar outcomes. Ninth
Yeah.
grade public speech class, but not debate, but just speech class. Total meltdown as a ninth grader, right, in front of the entire class. It wasn't the entire student body, but I was the youngest kid in class now, and all the seniors there, and I totally lost it in the speech, like, lost it. I had to run out of the class in
Yeah.
tears, right? I can go to 21 years old, single guy in front of an entire church full of strangers with a solo. So Yeah, I know exactly what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that because that will help people understand what we're talking about because you're actually giving a real experience that you had and having that emotion and kind of showing that how it started here in the 5th grade and then it showed up again in ninth grade or high school
Ninth
or whatever
grade.
and then again, right, when you were a young adult. And that's just how it works. And so when we think about the youngest part of you that experienced that where all of a sudden this embarrassment, like, how am I honking on this? Like, this is supposed to be my thing. I'm supposed to shine at this. And now I'm completely vulnerable and embarrassed. I'm exposed, right? It's
Yeah.
stressful and your body experiences all this emotion. And then it keeps showing up every time you're faced with something that makes you maybe feel more vulnerable like that, or I could mess up. That part is going to show up and at least remind you whether it still takes over now. I don't know. Can you? Some people, they'll be like, I will never say something in public again. I'll never be a public speaker based on something that happened to them when they were young. Some people can, but I don't know. Right. And so that's the importance, though, is finding those things, those feelings in your body and addressing them so that they don't have to pop up when you're wanting to do something, when you're wanting to perform or show off or do something cool. That voice is not gonna tell you that we cannot do that. You can't put me in that situation ever again.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Something you said that I absolutely loved that was really an aha for me. You said, as you meet with women and you have these discussions, we explore these parts of us every single time. Every single time you have this discussion and this exploration, they get a win. Like we're talking about this is 100% guarantee, folks, right?
Yeah, it
That's
is. Our
powerful.
our parts are amazing. When kind of like the idea to help people start understanding where their parts are coming from. So when they come to a session and we're working on them, this is what I help them start realizing is that all the voices in your head, like when let's say you go on a car ride, you're driving and you're by yourself and you're thinking and you're trying to think how you're going to run your business or what I need to do in my family or my marriage or anything. And we are talking with ourself, we
Mm,
are actually talking to parts of us.
yeah.
And so anytime we have a thought or feeling like, "Oh yeah, no, I need to do this now," or whatever, we start talking in parts. This is what I help people do. So like even with Stephanie, it's like, "Okay, I want you to say a part of me feels stressed about this, or a part of me feels fearful over this, or a part of me is feeling overwhelmed." So that you can start like in your mind realizing it's not you talking to your current self now trying to navigate stuff. You're actually getting the advice from your parts. And when we realize that, and after a session, and you realize, oh my goodness, I was just talking to my 2-year-old self. One of my clients today, we were talking to her 2-year-old self. She's like, oh my gosh, I just realized she's 2. I'm like, okay, so she's 2. So we need to go love her and bring her on our lap and tell her that she's going to be okay. Tell her that she's safe. And then she is not going to pop up in the relationship that you're having right now in your 40s, right? It's like, it's so powerful and so impactful. And
No.
so it's true. When I meet with these women and I'm not doing anything except guiding them to find their own parts, their own answers. I'm just asking them a question and they're asking themselves. They're asking their body. They're asking the pain. Like, I'm stressed and it's in my stomach. Okay. So let's ask that pain in your stomach. How come it's there? And the body will tell you, well, I'm stressed about this, or I'm nervous about this, or I'm fearful about this. And it tells you. And then we work on it. So it is a win every single time. And sometimes it's really sad and there's a lot of awareness, but when we find the part, even if it's a hard thing, there's still something about knowing. It's almost like truth, right? Reality kind of sets you free. That truth makes you feel better. It's like that. And then they just know where to go. They know what to do. Oh, okay, this is what I'm dealing with right now. Or that makes so much sense. And when we heal that little part, then they're more clear and they can go and like take action from their conscious level self instead
Mhm.
of that young version.
I love at the end of the
Mhm.
sessions with you, I typically my little girl or my teenage girl is, feels a lot lighter and happier and more joyful, and typically is like skipping off or, something to where
For you, it'd probably be dancing off. Let's just be real.
dancing, yes, is a big one. But it's so cool to feel that, and to know that little girl is happy now and she's not as worried and she's feeling safe.
Yeah, that's what's cool about all of it, right? You don't have to carry it day in and day out and wonder why I still feel like that, because we do tend to wake up with the anxieties or the stresses that are on our heart and mind, and we go to sleep with them. And then we wake up, and sometimes it's just a lot. So when we can start identifying who these parts are, kind of like in the movie, oh, I've got this part, this part, this part, right? Everybody has
Mhm.
a certain number. It doesn't matter. Everybody's are different. But when you start knowing, you're like, oh, that part's showing up today. And it doesn't feel so huge. I feel so overwhelmed. It's like, no, just there's a part of me that feels overwhelmed and it feels pretty big right now.
Do you have women that find that as you work together, over time, they start recognizing on their own these
Uh-huh.
parts and having these discussions kind of independent?
Yep. That's the difference, I think, with talk therapy. It's really continual, and you can learn things obviously and grow. But I didn't really have my changes, my actual like life changes, until I switched into going to a therapist that did more of the somatics type stuff with which IFS, which is parts work, falls into that category because it has the changes in the body. So yes, when I don't expect these people to work with me for their whole entire lives. I do want them to work on this for their whole entire lives, because it's like anything. Anything you nurture is going to stay healthy. It's going to stay like on the right trajectory. It's going to be like progressive. And our emotional wellness should be just like our spiritual, physical, everything else. And so it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to be in therapy my whole life. No, but if you care about yourself and you want a relationship with yourself and you want to be healthy for yourself, then you will do this for your life. So I want to teach people how. It takes a little
Right.
while, right? Like some things we can just do. Stephanie's probably to the point where she's like, I was sitting with my younger self, or I noticed this part come up, and she can sit and tune into that part. Sometimes you just need help. Like sometimes it's like I couldn't get myself to that deeper level
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it's like sometimes easier to help um, someone else than it is yourself sometimes, because you can see it different. But when you're in it, it's a little harder. But
Yeah.
absolutely, the whole point is to teach these people the tools, help them feel it, and to the point where they recognize anytime it's happening, what's going on. Okay, I know I need to do my work. I need to go sit with myself and go see what is bothering me. And absolutely, they can figure it out.
Speaking of, I've been like waiting for the perfect moment to talk about this, but I'm not going to go into detail. But something that I have brought up several times in our sessions, I think I had a major breakthrough and I'm excited to meet with you again.
Oh, yay. That's exciting. I love
Yes.
that. I love that so
Yes.
much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Now you're taking this whole 100% guarantee even further. Like you haven't even had the session and you're already having breakthroughs. This is good. This is good.
She's learned a
Yes.
lot. She's been really doing amazing.
I've
That's the
done a
cool
lot of
part
work.
though. Like you said, it really is a win every single time. I love what I do so much and I love my clients so much. There isn't anybody that I do not love. It's so powerful to know that it's not me doing anything for them. I'm just kind of the guiding person of it to help them. And it's just so great just to love all these parts. There's just a really good connection doing what I do.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
For sure. So, Roxanne, what have been some of the most defining experiences in your life? And what experiences have defined your character or tested your capacity?
Well, a lot, right? Because I'm this age now. Oh man. Well, let me just this is kind of a part of me, and this part kind of like I guess is the beginning of how I kind of even got to where I am now. So let me start with that. I don't know that's really answering your question, but I'm going to start with that. And this is one I've talked about in my podcast before, but when I was 5, I was on my way to kindergarten for the first day, and my mom was walking me across the crosswalk. We just lived right by the school. And at that time, I sucked my thumb, and my mom didn't want me to be sucking my thumb, but I did suck my thumb. And as we're walking across the crosswalk, there was a little boy sitting against the school, and he was sucking his thumb. And my mom said to me, "Do you see that little boy over there? You do not want to look like that little boy sucking your thumb." So in that moment, there's lots of things. Now I know why my mom did that, and I'll share that. She wasn't trying to be mean to me. She wasn't at all. But my little 5-year-old self created a belief at that time. A belief that, oh no, I became very hyper aware at that point that people might notice me or have a critical judgment with me. I didn't know that before. I was 5. I was just skipping along, right? I didn't even realize to be aware of other people and what they thought of me. And in that moment, a few things were created. One was that I am not okay the way I am, that this is not okay. And the other was that I need to be perfect. And so that is what created this. I had a perfectionistic belief for so long. Like, I would not put myself out there. I would show up as a young child, just not authentic because of the fear of somebody thinking I was not enough or I was wrong or weird. And sucking my thumb was one of those things. Now going back and doing my parts work on her, I was able to sit with her and see my mom's perspective, which was she knew how shy I was and she knew I'd be embarrassed if somebody made fun of me. So she did it that way. She didn't know how to do it another way. And that was shaming, but not on purpose. Uh, anyway, so fast forward, right? And here I am, an adult. I get married and I get married to somebody who struggles with addiction. And I'm faced with this world of, I do not know how to navigate this. Like, what am I supposed to do? Had been married 6 months when all of it came out, and I did not expect any of that. And so what happened was my belief was, okay, I can do this. All I need to do is I need to be cuter, smarter, sexier, nicer, greet him at the door, do all the things right so that he will think I'm great and he will choose me and not these other people. Well, obviously, that is not how it works, right? I can't make somebody do something. I don't have to be better than I already am. I'm already just fine the way I am. But that's what happened. So that was a very big deal. And I was only 22 at the time. So fast forward to now, here we are doing what we do. It was so impactful when I was going through these things. I realized what it was finally. It was like 17 years into marriage. And I had a choice to make. I could either just pretend that this wasn't happening. I could just keep believing the lies, or I could start being like, no, this is not okay. And I'm going to do it different. I'm going to figure it out. And that's where I went to 12-step for partners of addicts. That's where therapy started coming into play. That's where all of these things started showing up for me. And the difference was that I chose to take them. They showed up years before that, but I was not at all ready for that. So it was like right on time. And the difference was that I took it. And so because of that, I was able to learn and see and experience this and learn parts work and learn breath work and all these things that led me to where I am now, where I get to take something that literally I thought I was going to die. I so thought I was going to die. I know Stephanie's read my book, but I even told my husband at that time, I don't know if I'm going to wake up in the morning because I was so heartbroken. I couldn't even believe it. But I did wake up and I was able to get through it. And now I get to help other people. And it's not now. It started out helping people through betrayal trauma and infidelity, but it's turned into, it doesn't matter what our parts are saying. Everybody has parts. It doesn't matter what you've been through. It's all about healing the parts of us so that we can do what we need to do to thrive, to live our passion and help other people.
I think every woman we know needs to book sessions with Roxanne. That's just what I'm saying. And I'm going to be that first woman. Okay, I'm not the woman here, but I'm like, I want in on that. I want in on that.
I do work with men. I do. I just promote to women. That's just my target, audience who mostly follows me, but I do work with men. So
we get it. That's us too. I mean, we work with
everybody.
men.
My husband does it. My husband has been in therapy even before I met him. So I've been married now for 5 years to this husband, and he was doing therapy before I met him, like 2 years of it, and now he's been doing it ever since we've been married, but he's started parts work with his therapist.
Mm,
It's been over a year now, and it's been amazing. He can't even believe it. It's just so awesome.
I'm excited.
What are you
Yeah.
excited about?
Just to see the healing and the breakthroughs that I know you're gonna have.
It's empowering. My husband is like, oh, and Seth, if you wanted to talk to him about it, he is so open. He loves therapy so much and he loves parts work. It's just been everything to him. He's the best. So, but we all have
Thank you.
problems, right? We all have heartache, we all have fear, we all have little children, little parts of us that hold us back from
Mhm.
being everything we want to be or show up in a way we want to show up or just that's on our heart sometimes where we feel nervous or embarrassed or less than even though we're thriving. We all have it. Every single one. I work through my stuff all the time. I haven't it's not like I've made it. I just now know my parts and I know when they're showing up. So then I can pause, take time, do the work I need to do, just like I would spiritually, physically, or anything else.
Oh,
And then I'm back on my way, figuring out my stuff.
You've got this smirk on your face right now.
I
I
think
know
she's happy that you like it. Like, you're like, okay, this is cool. This is
Mhm.
awesome.
That's exactly what it is. I'm like, "Oh, we talked about how this meeting was gonna be so amazing and for guests and all kinds of stuff, and I think that it's actually gonna be so good for you and for our marriage and for our family and just healing our family. There's so much in this. I'm excited.
Yeah. It really is cool when a family heals together. It usually starts with one person doing something that like shows the family system there could be a different way or a new way. Maybe we've done it one way and we've tried, but now we're on to the next. And that ability to like stay in that humble place of like, oh my gosh, maybe my stuff is affecting people. I'll tell you that all of our stuff affects every single person that we come in contact with. So the healthier we are, the easier or the more, I don't know, our relationships will just be better.
So let's just ask this question: is the whole reason? Well, obviously not the whole reason, but did you have like this motive, and that's why you like? I know you don't work
No,
that way, babe. I know you don't work that way, but
honestly, I didn't even think about how it could affect you because I've just thought about how much it's
Mhm.
helped me and all the different women that I've talked to. And I've talked to them about how I've been doing parts work and inner child work. So it didn't even dawn on me that it is something which is actually not typical of me. Like usually I'm like, oh yeah, Seth, you should check this out. But this time I didn't. I've been doing it for myself and just sharing it with him. And so no, it was God.
Yeah. Yeah,
Scott.
and it's kinda like, we share things with each other and people because it's made an impact on us, and so we share, but the other person hearing it will only hear it, like, deeply when they're ready, so it's like, my husband's been married to me all these years, and I'm doing this work, and we talk about it, he's like, "Oh, that's so cool." I'm like, "Listen to what just happened," and I'll tell him some he doesn't know my clients or who they are, but some of
Yeah.
the stories he might know, like, just, as far as breakthroughs, but he didn't wanna necessarily do that. He was going to therapy and he was doing his thing, and then all of a sudden it was like he himself came to a realization like, "I'm still stuck on this one thing that I've been, like, talking to my therapist about now for, like, 3 years." I'm like, "Huh, interesting. I wonder I wonder what we could do about this," right? I wonder if we could do something different, right? Anyway, but also he's like, "I think maybe parts work might help me." And I'm like, "I think it might. Maybe we should try." Anyway, right? But we're all like that. That's not just him, that's everybody. We have to come to that place of going, I think it's the right time for me. Because even in
Mhm.
my situation, I can ask myself, I can say, why did I stay so long? Right? I was married for 21 years. I really want it to work. Those parts of me wanted it to work so bad they were willing to almost die. Right. And
Mm,
so it's not like I should have left sooner. Or I should have figured this out. I figured it out right on time, right when it was the next step for me. Everything is one step at a time. So
yes.
whatever you end up doing, Seth, it really is just things hit us differently when we are ready, I guess.
When the student is ready, the teacher appeareth.
That's kinda how it works. Things fall in line like that. They show up in front of us. Like the woman telling me, "I think I'm supposed to tell you I have a therapist," right? That's happened to
Mhm.
me all through the years going through this process. "I think I'm supposed to tell you this," or something will come into my view. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that was for me, for sure."
Mm.
Well, I think one of the beautiful things that I'm experiencing in this conversation is something you just said. How did I stay so long in a toxic relationship? By the way, check out the latest episode to talk about of the Choose In podcast, because we're talking about toxic relationships and abusive relationships. Right? I listened to that. It's beautiful. By the way, I had so many ahas and insights. I was like, wow. And then I came and talked to Stephanie about it, and now here we are. And this idea that maybe wants to surface for me is, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, what's
Yeah.
wrong with me? Wait a second. I'm coming to this at the perfect time. Like how is it that after nearly 16 years of marriage, I didn't realize that maybe there was toxicity there? Like, I should have known better. Wait a second. Like,
No.
like that's part of the journey. Like there is no reason to take shame along for the ride, right? Like take it out of the backpack, take it out of the handbag. Whether you're carrying a canvas bag or Louis Vuitton or a grocery sack, right? Um, like, you're where you are, and that's so and that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing.
Well,
So,
everything has to, like what you've learned before this, what we've all learned before leads us to then being ready and open to the next thing. If somebody would have talked to me about parts work years ago, I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I have parts in my head. I have parts in, like, no, like I'm not schizophrenic. I am not like, this. I think you are over the top. Almost like my language wouldn't, I don't think I could have understood it to
Mhm.
where I would have thought it was for me. So
Yes.
everything it really is right on time. It, like, look at a baby, right? They're laying on the ground, and then all of a sudden they're sitting, and then they're crawling, and then they're walking, right? We learn to tie our shoe, then we learn to ride a bike. Like, one thing has to come before the next. And it's the same with any sort of healing modality too. It's like there
Yes.
might be something new after this. I hope so. I love the changes, right? I started with talk therapy, and then I
Yes.
did EMDR, and then now I did IFS, which is parts work, and now I do it for a living. So I'm always hopeful new things will come, and that's progression in life. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's great.
what about the remorse that you feel when you realize this and you're like, "Oh my goodness, I've just messed up my kids."
Yeah, right. I was listening to something the other day, and she was talking about how she was like 30, I think, and she was talking about how she just started therapy. And somebody was asking her, "Well, why? What was going on with you that you just started therapy?" And she said, "This is going to sound crazy, but my mom actually did everything right. She was literally the best mom in the entire world. She couldn't have been any better. I love her so much. Like, she and I are like just the closest, like the best model parent. I want to be just like her. And all my parts are activated like, I'm never going to be able to measure up. I'm never going to be as good as her. I'm failing." So we all have parts no matter what. And it's not about whether we mess up our kids or not. It's more about the minute we change something, it's just like it's a ripple effect. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter how old, right? It's like
Mhm.
my kids were teenagers when I started into all of this. And so there's been a lot of repair. Hey, I didn't do that right back then,
Mhm.
right? It's like, even if I am the actual perfect mom there ever was, my children are still going to have their experiences and their parts. They're still going to have friends at school that bully them. They're still going to be told that they're the worst, ugliest, whatever. It's going to happen. So it doesn't matter. But what does matter is when we change something ourselves, we show them that first, change is a good thing. We don't have to be prideful and be like, I'm never changing, right? We see that a lot, like, I'm not changing, or she changed. And I'm like, well, I hope so, because I don't want to be my 20-year-old self for my whole life, right? So, it's not, yes, there's a little remorse, a little guilt sometimes when we know we did it wrong. But as we keep working on our parts, we have more of an easier time being humble about that, to where we don't have so much shame or like, I am literally the worst. Like, I can't believe I did that. And instead, it's like, I'm literally the worst. Okay, there's a part of me that literally feels the worst. Okay, now what am I going to do with that? Well, I'm going to go and address this with my child. Hey, I did not handle that right. I did not handle that right when you were 4, or I did not handle that right when you're 25. Like, doesn't matter when. And just that accountability it makes all the difference. It heals them in ways that think about it. If our parents were to say, hey, you know what? I'm really sorry. My example, I'm really sorry that I didn't see you. I didn't help you, that you were on your own. If my parents would say something like that, that would be just awesome. It would be so healing. It would change everything.
Mhm.
So we will damage our children. We will do it wrong. And all we're supposed to do is recognize our parts, navigate them, heal them so that our children can see what that looks like. The more healing we do, the more they want to do it. My son, who is 22, he just started therapy. He's doing parts work. So it's like he didn't even think he needed it before. But he's like, I'm not doing that great right now. I feel a little like, I don't know, his success. He wants to be successful, right? And he's feeling this weird stuff like, what if I'm not? Right? Little things. But he's taking action now early. He doesn't have to be 40 like me before he starts because I've shown him it's okay and there's no shame in it. And it's like just awesome.
That's awesome.
I've always loved therapy. I started in my first marriage when I was, I think, 19 or 20. 20-ish
So great.
is when I started, and I loved talk therapy. And I had somebody, I can't remember the discussion exactly, but she was just like, talk therapy is not for everybody. Not everybody needs to do it. And I'm like, well, actually, like if you
Mhm.
look at talk therapy for what it really is, it doesn't mean that you're saying I'm crazy or, like I have all these issues. To me, I've always looked at it as somebody who has more experience or more knowledge, and they're there to support me and help share that with me so that I
Yeah.
can improve. That's all it is. And when
That
I've
is
said
right.
that to some people, they're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. I'm like, well, we go to friends kind of for the same
Yeah.
thing, but
Mhm.
they don't always have the experience or the knowledge that can help us. And that can be what, a therapist or a life coach or, all
Mhm.
these different modalities of healing. That's all it is.
It really is. It's going to somebody that like for a voice of reason to like share and then hear a non like family and friends are so awesome, but their parts come into play also when we're talking to them. And so if you want to say something that's going on in your life, then all of a sudden your sisters or your parents or your neighbor, it doesn't matter who, all of a sudden their stuff is coming up. Their parts are like, she should not, no, you shouldn't do it this way. And, people were they were like, you can never leave your husband. You're going to ruin your kids. And then other people are like, how are you staying so long? Like, their parts are showing up, right? The people that
Yes.
told me I should stay are people who have stayed in unhealthy relationships. So if I leave, what does that do to their part? Their part is now going, she was strong enough to leave and I wasn't, and now
Mm,
I'm the worst, right? Remember,
yes.
all of
We're
our
all
parts are not,
connected. We're all
it's all
connected.
connected. Yeah.
You move
And that
you move one little string and it affects somebody else's little string.
right. Exactly. And that's the
Mm.
importance. If everybody was acknowledging or aware of why they are feeling or saying what they're saying, right?
Mhm.
Then if like they are aware of those parts, then it would just make such a difference because people would be like, oh, wait, I'm saying that to you because I'm ashamed that I didn't leave. Or I'm saying that to you because I wish I could do that. And, yeah, you should leave because I wish I could. It doesn't matter. But yeah, for
Well,
sure.
and when you recognize, this whole process, you can look at other people's behavior and realize that's not me. That's them and their parts coming up,
Hmm.
when they treat you a certain way or act a certain way.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So
Look at,
parents, family members, friends, just always remember to don't take it too serious. Like hear it, listen, because that's how relationships are. But just remember that ultimately, like you said, it's you, right? Not don't put them on a pedestal that they for sure know. It's better to have someone that's neutral helping you through those things.
Mm.
yes, definitely.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
So, how do societal expectations and stereotypes affect women's mindset? And what can be done to break free from them?
Yeah, that's that's a big one, right? And just
Yes.
with all the recent things, right, too. So,
Let's talk about recent things. Let's get it. Let's really light it up. I've been yeah.
I don't know about talking about the recent things, but But I will talk about society and societal norms and what's expected. Women for so long have been expected to stay quiet or to be the have the man be kind of the upper hand or make the final decisions. But women are incredible at not only nurturing, but our brains work so different. And we like to see things, at least for myself and what I know about others, is that we don't just see the one thing. Oh, we have this one task. Oh, we're going to go on a trip. Grab my one suitcase. No, we've got people and animals and cleaning up and navigating so many things. So we look at the world that way. So we our ability to see multiple things at once and how, okay, if I do this, then this will happen, then this, then this, then this. So we have this great view, almost like we can zoom out and see it as a whole, uh, fairly easily. It's the way our brain works, and so it's too bad that that's kind of the societal norms, is that women are not as capable, but that's changing because we can't take it anymore because we have so much to give. And what's so cool about watching our young people, like my young adults and those around them, people say stuff like, "Oh, they're just all terrible and they're making terrible choices and they end their marriages so easily." I'm like, it's not because they're not trying and they don't want to, it's because they have boundaries. It's because they're like, we will not be doing it that way. We are not going to sit there and be in a relationship for 40 years. That's destructive because we have things to do and we have passions and purpose and we want to change the world. Right. And so, as far as like, I mean, I don't know what to tell you as far as what's harmed women. I mean, everything. But women are waking up and so are men, honestly. Uh, Seth, you or my husband, there are men out there that are pro women. They're not against women and they don't think that they're just for one purpose and one purpose only. They see the high value, and the more that continues to change, the more men have a voice that speak out and say, "Hold on, no, that's not okay." And the more women just start healing the parts of them that are keeping them quiet. More women, men do too, but a lot of women have a part that holds their voice back. Will talk, and it's like they have a part right here on their throat that's squeezing it when we go to talk about it. And I'm like, well, what is happening? It's like that part is telling me that if I say something, I'm going to be in trouble. Or if I say something, they're going to mock me or whatever. And so that is generational. It's been passed down. And we now with nervous system healing and everything that's just on the rise with changing the mental wellness of people, the throat is getting healed, honestly, in
Mhm.
whatever modality to do that. And parts work is one of them. But that changes everything. I don't know if that answered your question, but it still worked out.
It was a great answer. And healing the throat, I guess, if you will, is part of the breakthrough that I've had of just having issues. I've talked to you many times about commenting, even just in smaller groups. Like if I'm one on one, I can have discussions and do great. But if it's a
Mhm.
bigger group, it's like I'm feeling even talking about it right now, my hands are starting to sweat. Like every
Uh-huh.
sensation in my body starts going off and telling me, you can't say anything, and then telling me, oh, it doesn't pertain, or, it's,
Yeah.
anyways, all these different things. So,
Yeah, and you're not the only one who has that. So and men do too. That was one that was on my husband's throat from before
mm,
his past. So he had it as well. So it's not just women, but a lot of women have it. Okay, so it is because if I say this, what is someone gonna think of me, right? I'm gonna be embarrassed or they're gonna be like, "Well, that wasn't relevant," right? And
uh-huh, yep,
when we heal those, we can start feeling so relaxed. Like, it's almost like if you imagined yourself just clenching everything up and you're like clenching, clenching, clenching your shoulders and your hands, and then you just, okay, release it, right? You ungrip your hands and you're like just, you relax and you breathe. That relief is what it feels like when we start healing those parts of us that are keeping us so keyed up of doing it the right way and trying to make sure we don't do it the wrong way. Like we are hyper vigilant in so many areas out of those types of fears.
Mhm.
okay. And coming to the realization, like, I mean, it's only been a few days since I've made this realization, and I'm just thinking, okay, so how does that pertain, that person and how I have felt, how does that pertain to me in when I'm in big groups? And then the biggest thing that I've told myself so far is, well, that person's not there, so it's okay. Like, and even if they were there, it's still okay. Like, anyways,
Yeah.
that's what I've done so far.
But to add on to that, without getting personal, I'll talk in general of the throat and anybody who works on the throat, is that it helps you be able to say the true things that you need to say. So whether it is to the actual person who's caused you harm, or a boundary that needs to be set with a spouse, children, family members, whoever, it gives you permission. You feel the permission and almost the empowerment to finally get to say what you need to say. And it releases you of the fear of, well, if I do say it, what's going to happen? How will they respond? You almost get to say it. And then however they respond, you're able to let them hold that themselves. You don't need to carry that. Where before, every worry and fear is, if I say this, then they're going to do this and then they're going to be sad. And it's like, we're not responsible if they're sad. And that's what you learn when you can
Mhm.
release the fear around it, or when you figure out how old they are, right? And then we know, like, wait, no, they get to hold on to that, whatever this causes for them.
So, Roxanne, have you ever had an experience that brought you to your knees and, the thought crossed your mind, I can't do this?
Mhm. Several times. Several times. I'll tell you the big one, which is you held up my book, and it's the first chapter of that book, because that was really a pivotal moment for me. My book is called Cutting Ties, and it's called that for a reason. So when everything had come out, this would have been 2014. Everything had come out 2 years before that in my previous marriage, of the depth of what everything was, and, in this sex addiction that my husband at that time had. And, he had gone to rehab. I had picked him up, and the only reason I decided to give him any more time was because the therapist said if he really wanted to change, he actually can, and he will never do that stuff again, because addiction is one of those things. It's not that the person is a terrible person, but the acts they're doing are, and we
Mm.
can't have that. And so I couldn't stay if he was gonna do that, but I really wanted to, my those parts of me that were like, I need it to be him, I need him to be with me forever, were still at play. So I had told him, picked him up from rehab, that I would give him a year to, choose recovery, and if he chose, then that would be great. Now he didn't, I ended up divorced, but after I picked him up from rehab, um there was some things he learned in the therapy sessions after the fact that we learned together that he was supposed to do. So if I was stressed or had a trigger or a trauma response and I was nervous, he was supposed to act a certain way. So one day I came to him and I was like, I'm just not doing well. I am panicking. I'm having this trigger trauma response. And I just need you to tell me something honest. And it didn't have to be about addiction, just anything. I didn't care. I'm like, I don't care what it is. Just tell me something honest. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, ah, so it's like it panicked me more. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm literally spiraling. I need you to tell me something honest. Just tell me. He's like, no, I'm not going to tell you something honest. And I screamed and I'm like, you tell the truth right now. You tell me something right now. And he's like, I will never tell you the truth. I will never. Okay. Can you feel some of that? It was like, I was like, your partner is supposed to, when you are not doing well, be your regulator, right? Like, oh, okay, my spouse is not okay. I think I need to do something, right? I need to listen. Anyway, he was not in that place at that moment. And so he says that, and I leave that area where he was at, and I'm like, I go in my closet and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I cannot do this. I'm yelling up to God, like, I cannot do this. This is crazy. And I looked over and all of his neckties were lined up in a row over the bar. And they were all color coordinated and they were even across, and I looked at them, I'm like, this is not true. Meaning my life is not perfect. It was like they were perfect, and I was like, this is a lie. My life is a lie. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to cut them. So I grabbed my little scissors out of my bathroom, and they were just the little 2-inch blades, just the little ones for your bathroom or whatever. And I grabbed them and I went in there and I just started cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. And I didn't stop until I was all the way through the ties. Like I just went across the whole row, but I dropped to the ground. And I was yelling up to God, like, I am so broken. Do you not see how broken I am? How can you be asking me to do something like this? I literally felt insane. Like I just needed to be done. Like I couldn't do this. It was too much. So I grabbed a bag. I left my house. I pulled over, I parked somewhere, and I opened up Facebook and I saw some quote. I can't remember it now. I think I have it in the book, but something about, I don't even know. But in my mind right now, it's something like, are you going to let somebody's choices dictate who you are or something like that? And I just like kind of relaxed and I text him and I said, you may or may not need all new ties. And he responded back with, yeah, I saw, I know, I'm sorry. It was totally my fault. So he had come down from his stuff and that was fine. It turned out fine. But that was on a Saturday. I cut those ties. And on Monday I was on the treadmill and I was like, okay, God, how did I get to this place where I was not acting the way I would normally act? And I was doing that based on what somebody else was doing. Like, I don't want to do
Mhm.
that. I don't like that. I want to be able to be in control of myself, regardless of how crazy someone or something is. And as I'm on the treadmill having this conversation, I just heard in my head, uh, what did I hear in my head? I heard in my head that this story just started rolling through my mind. And I'm like, am I writing a book? And he's like, yeah, you're going to write a book and it's called Cutting Ties. You need to help women. You need to help people to know that they're not alone, that they're not crazy, and that there's hope and healing ahead. So if you look on that cover, Seth, that you've got, or if anybody looks it up, it's called Cutting Ties. The front cover those are the actual ties of the cover. And what's so cool about those is that not one of them was cut all the way through. There was just a notch. And this was not even like I went literally just cut and cut and cut and cut. Had no idea. But isn't that just like so true with the way we feel sometimes? Like we feel broken or torn, but we're not completely like unable to heal. Like it's not like it's all the way off, right? We're going to
Mhm.
make it. And I just thought it was very interesting that would happen and that there they are. They're on the cover of my book and it's super great.
I've always wondered if that was the actual one or if you had to stage it.
Yeah. Nope.
I was
That
wondering the
those
same thing in my mind.
Those are the ties. I even was like, when I had the picture taken of them, I was like, we have to find a closet that's brown, that looks like this, that has shoes over here. Like it just, for whatever reason, when I saw the cover in my mind that day on the treadmill, it looked like what I saw in
Mm.
so that it was really, this is what I saw. And I just needed to know. I mean, I don't know. I just needed to portray that, I guess.
Yeah. My daughter or our daughter saw this book and she's like, Mom, what is that book? I'm like, it's about cutting ties. She's like, oh, like how the ties are? I'm like, yeah, but it goes into more. We'll talk about it later. She's little.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's
I
funny.
thought it was great.
I'm just gonna make sure that there are absolutely no scissors in our bathroom.
She's learned enough. She's already been doing parts work. I
Uh,
haven't started into that quite yet.
It's true. I don't think I could do that.
no. I'll focus on not being the guy that
Yeah,
needs
cool.
that needs that sort of intervention in my life.
Oh, I
I mean,
know.
you've already talked about doing parts work, so that'll help.
You
Yeah.
know, I I really think that it's time for me to make that next step. You and I have done, I mean, really from the time that we got married or soon thereafter, uh, we did some marriage counseling, which was awesome, as we try to navigate getting married after, life after divorce and remarriage,
Yeah.
right? And
Well, and
blending families, right?
Yeah.
Um,
and all the parts that everybody brings.
but
Yeah.
and I feel like I've made so many strides, but I honestly feel like it's time for me to make some more discoveries to to grow in a way that I haven't yet. And so here I am, and here is the teacher, right? Like parts work is here, so
I love it.
yeah.
I love the openness and the vulnerability to even say that. And it's kind of like sometimes we think it's scary to do the next thing, or why do I even have to do the next thing? Like, I've already done this. Like, why do I have to do this? But honestly, it's about leveling up. It's kind of like when we are one place too long, we kind of get stagnant or bored sometimes, or we just kind of lose that ability or even the awareness to do more or better. And so when we feel like what you're talking about, Seth, it really is like, ooh, this just makes me so excited for you because leveling up to the next level brings you to the next level. Like, think about it. Like, if you when you learn to drive, that has changed your world. You can go anywhere you want, right? So if someone was to tell you, well, now that you learn that, now you don't get to anymore ever again, you would feel
Right,
stuck, right?
right.
And so it's like anything. Every time we learn something, we're like, I wouldn't want to unlearn that. Even all the stuff I went through, even me cutting ties, it's like I would not change any of it because I wouldn't know what I know. And I cannot give up what I know. And I know that there's still more that I don't know. And I'm excited at some point, whenever that shows up, to be like, I get to learn something more and I want to level up to the next level. It's empowering to do that. So it's cool hearing you say that.
I'm excited, and at the same time
Uh
r
huh.
and at the same time, I've had this feeling as we've been talking today, "Wow, that sounds really vulnerable. Wow, I" and I'm very open. I mean, I'm a reasonably vulnerable person, I think. I can be transparent with people. But I think today our conversation for me has brought up these ideas that, wow, how do I feel about being willing to be very transparent? The word that comes to me, honestly, is to be exposed,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's an interesting part of me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm living with this. I'm living with this on a daily basis. And while I'm awesome and I'm grateful for where I am and what I've learned, do I want to continue to live with any limitations that might be imposed because Mr. Exposure is at the control center,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh,
Yep.
no, I don't. So yeah, even talking right now, my heart is just like, oh, boo, 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 boo. I can feel it there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that is vulnerable. And there is a feeling of being exposed. And the fact that your body feels it and that you can even feel your heart racing, anytime that happens and we feel all of that, it's our indicator that a part is trying to talk to us. And just so you know, our parts show up because they want to be heard. And so even though that part is nervous about being exposed, it's still showing up. So it's almost like it's tired. They get exhausted trying to keep us from being exposed. And so then they start doing it. It's kind of like a 3-year-old that is just on your leg, like, mom, mom, dad, 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 dad. And they don't stop until you're like, what do you need? Right.
right.
Our parts do the same. When they're ready, they make themselves known. And so you can have some sort of assurance in that, even though being exposed feels very scary, and especially for
Hmm.
that part is also saying, I'm scared, but I'm still here. I mean, I'm making your heart race. So I still want help. They're just a little bit nervous.
And that's what happens every single time I have a
Mhm.
thought that I need to share and I don't. Is my heart races like crazy,
Yeah.
like crazy. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to heal that part.
Well, I will say, like, it must be now is the time, I mean, we've been publishing this show. We've been I'll say that your voice, right? We have combined our voices to a beautiful duet. And with lots of little soliloquies, and solos in the last several years, but just kind of living in crescendo. And I just have to tell you this, Roxanne, because this is awesome. Stephanie shared this with me the other day, like yesterday or like today, talking about having a voice. Okay. Um,
Mm.
so we had blood done a couple of months ago, just because, hey, I'm 50. and Steph's in her 40s, right? And just one of those things to manage our health and understand what's going on inside physically. And I don't know, that was 6 months ago. And we met a gentleman at the hospital who took our blood, and I had a great conversation with him and talked to him about the podcast, actually. And, our podcast is for women and men. But, and we publish this, we target, we're putting our mindset to deliver a message for women. And he's like, well, I love podcasts. So he ends up getting on our VIP list, right? And apparently he's been listening. So we hadn't seen him in 6 months, and Steph went in yesterday, and he was there. And do you want to tell the story, or do you want me to finish the story? Okay.
You're doing great.
So he was there, not directly helping Stephanie, but in the same lab. And another woman was doing Stephanie's blood work, and he said something like to the other phlebotomist. He said, "Well, you know who you're working with, right?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "You're working with one of the preeminent podcasters in the world." What did he say?
I don't
So
remember.
cool.
Like,
I love that.
you're working with one of the biggest, most successful podcasters. And one was like, "Really?" She's like, "Oh yeah, she produces a podcast, a show. It's really good."
Wow, I love that.
And
That's
then
so
before he
great.
left, he was like, "You got to talk to her about it. You got to get information." I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I was so surprised by it.
I
And he
love
was like,
it.
"Do you remember me?" He's like, "I drew your blood." I'm like, "Yes, I remember you."
Yeah. You're like, I came in here last time. Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that. What cool validation of the work that you're doing, you know?
Right. It really was. It was actually pretty big for me. I wasn't expecting it, and I was very surprised at, even the words that he used, and that he's like, "Yeah, I've listened to several," I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it's
It's
not just
great.
for women. Now I have to say that, whenever I tell people about the podcast. We do it for women, but there are some men that listen to, and they
Yeah,
glean
of
some good
course.
things from
We
it.
call them smart men who know. Men who
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I know this is like a really personal aside, but it just had this thought, Steph, that you're doing an amazing work here on the show. Like, we're reaching women all around the world. We're traveling around producing this show, and your voice is very apparent and clear. At the same time, you're driving people, you're inviting people to the show, because everywhere we go, you have conversations with people, and you're always very confident and direct in saying, "Oh, do you listen to podcasts? We have a show," right? And she'll come home and say, "Oh, I was at the dentist office, and here are 3 women who want to listen to the show, and I gave them the show," right? And
Mm.
they're all excited. They're all excited. It's not like you're out pushing something on somebody. So I don't know. Again, this is just a real super, like, personal experience of our own. But interestingly enough, that show, that little string in our life, is affecting somebody else's string. And one of the things I love about this show, honestly, because I'm on the producing side with you, is just watching your voice, like, be propagated and shared. Like, I think you're amazing. I want everybody else to know you're amazing. And apparently he does, because you know who you're sitting with, right? Like, this is one of the most amazing, prolific podcasters. Anyway, I thought it was a cute little aside,
It
Rock.
is. And relevant to what we're talking about the voice, and just even that gaining that confidence, right? Like, when you start something new you've never done before, it is very scary. The first time I heard that inspiration that says you're starting a podcast, it's called Choose In. I'm like, I never even listened to podcasts. What are you talking about? Like, what is happening? You know? And this is 2020, and I'm like, I don't listen to them. And it's like, well, I mean, learn, I guess. Anyway, it was scary, and I cried a whole bunch, and I would try to do it, and then I would flop on the bed and cry again and then get up and do it again, right? And it really is about gaining this strength in our voice and the confidence to back it up that, yeah, you do have something to say. And Stephanie, you
Mhm.
do. You do have people to help. You do have a voice that needs to be heard, and you're doing it, and you're gaining the confidence every single time,
For
just
sure.
like anybody else. Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you so much for your validation. It means a lot to me. I feel, I mean, I was even sharing with a friend the other day just that, like we were talking about when your heart is racing and you're like, oh, I'm not good enough, or what do I have to offer, or, all these things. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I experienced, when Seth came to me and said, hey, we need to do a podcast. I feel like God's talking to me and he's saying we need to do a podcast. And I'm like, wait, me? Like, I don't know about that. Um, yeah, and I joke about it all the time. God knew he needed to work through Seth to get me to do this. And that's why it's for
Mhm.
women, but it's a man and a woman doing it.
It's
But
great.
just talking to her about how, if you're afraid of it and your heart's racing, that's when you need to do it and just do it. Just dive in. And
Yeah.
that's where the growth comes. And I feel like that's where the growth has come for me in this is and helping, my voice be heard and feeling like I've always felt like I had a lot to give, but I didn't know how to give it. And I knew that this was a way to do it that would be really, really scary for me. And I didn't know if I could do it, to be
Yeah.
honest. But I had my husband's support and confidence in me. And the more I do it, the more comfortable I get with it. And I feel like it gives me a voice here and in other places too.
Yeah.
So,
I know I remember when I met you in 2020, and, even then when I first met you, you told me then that you knew you had things to do, that you were supposed to be helping other people or changing the world in some way. I don't remember your words exactly, but
mhm.
I remember standing in that kitchen, I remember talking to you about that, and I was like, "Yeah, you totally are. You're going to definitely be doing something like this."
Oh, thank you. I forgot about that. What a-
This is a message to all of the women who are listening to the show today. Go start your podcast, whatever it is.
Your podcast, your book, or whatever's making your heart race, right? Lean
Yep,
into
do
it.
the parts work around the heart racing, and you will be able to get there sooner.
Mm, very true.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah, you're
much.
welcome. I'm glad that I was on with you guys.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, and I'm excited to see what, all of our futures holds.
Yeah, for
Mm.
sure.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but it actually made me tear up 2 different times just thinking, just how how I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Just all these beautiful feelings of, the gift that it's been for me and how it's helped me heal and to learn and grow and help others. It's just been so much. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so just thinking about, how it can bless our life, both of our lives
Mhm.
and our marriage and then our family and everything. It just made me very emotional in such a appreciative way.
Hmm.
So
I love
thank
that.
you.
And in our meeting, Stephanie, like you think about back to 2020, and then Seth, when you were talking about interesting the timing and how this particular day was the day we could record, right? It all like I had to meet you first back then, right? And we've had to have these years of contact here and there. And then the movie had to come out for you to watch it, Seth, so that you even had the idea of these different parts as and emotions to then even be able to connect to what I'm saying. It's like all of the timing matters. And that's why we can't say I should have sooner or I whatever. It's just not how it works. It all just comes together when it needs to come together.
Mhm. I can't remember the quote, but something about, God is never late. He's always on time. And
Always right on time.
just trusting
Mhm.
that, not I've learned that, trying to force things, like we're with Africa, the nonprofit organization and drilling wells there in an orphanage. And I keep trying to push and make sure that we go, and it just hasn't panned out. And I finally have to just so it doesn't stress me out, number one. And number 2, just trusting that when we're supposed to go, when it's gonna be good for our family and good for those over there, that it's going to happen because the
That's right.
timing is always perfect. And if it's meant to be, not to say that it won't be hard or will be effortless, but I've noticed that when I need to push and push and push and push and push, that it's just probably not the right time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, Roxanne, you work with women in one-on-one coaching, right? And
Thank you.
they can find you, at your site, which we'll have in all the details of the show. But I did have a question actually midstream, and I forgot to ask this. What you also work with women in high level group situations. What
Mhm.
does that look like?
Yeah. That is for somebody who wants to kind of go all in, like maybe it's personal, maybe it's career. It is more time, more money. It is a really deep dive. Like I'm gonna come away from this big program with these life-changing skills that I can use for the rest of my life. So some people just want to dip their toe into the water. Some people just financially even can just do this amount and that's all that they want to commit to right now. And so
Mhm.
that's the things that they do and that feels good to them. Some people want to work with me all the time. Some people want to work with me every few weeks or once a month. Everybody's at a different place on what they want. And so the high level is people who are career focused. They want to live their dreams and their passion and their parts are in the way, kind of like high thriving people who like
Mm.
that high function, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
Uh, like that. Obviously, anybody's welcome, but that's generally who it's geared towards. People who want to do that, regardless of the cost, kind of like that.
Right.
Even if they can't afford it, they figure it out. I mean, that's been my experience in my life. Programs will come, and I'm like, I do not have $15,000, but I feel called to it. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to have to figure it out then because I feel like I'm supposed to. And so the ones that I've done, like I figured it out and it's pretty crazy because it doesn't seem doable, but anything is doable if our heart wants it and if we really feel drawn to it. So that's kind of what that
Mm.
is.
There's something to the mindset of I'm going to make this investment because I know or I believe I know where it's going to take me, which is so powerful, right? And so growth oriented and creative oriented, as opposed to a what is this going to cost me kind
Mhm.
of mentality, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
a part though. We all have money wounds. We all have parts that are geared towards the financial part. So even healing that part helps us to be able to take
mhm.
those risks, even career wise or in investing in ourselves,
Mhm.
to even be able to do that for sure. But the investment, obviously, when we invest in ourselves, we actually get more out of it than when we get something for free. So it's a important thing to not, give too much for free because we could all day long but it just doesn't absorb the same unless somebody's invested.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's an exchange. I was just talking to that same friend the other day. It's an exchange of value, you
Yeah.
know, whether it's
Mhm.
monetary or uh, anything, even a conversation can be an
Yep.
exchange of value. And
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Well, I have this vision in my mind for women, a women's conference, okay, a women's conference all about self-care and empowerment. We've been talking about it. 1,000 women in the room with
Awesome. That's
Roxanne
great.
Granata as we do some
Love it.
parts where
Mhm.
could we do some good work in
Yeah,
a large group setting,
we
Roxanne?
can. Yeah, we can. I've done it. I've done it before. I haven't done parts work in front of I have spoken in front of 10,000 people before, so I know how to speak in groups, but I have done parts work with bigger groups. 1,000, never done that, but that doesn't mean it can't happen because it's the same concept of taking a part that we just guide them with the like I don't know how to explain it, I don't think, but you're guiding the person to find what they need to find. So it doesn't matter what I say, they're going to find what they need to find.
mm,
Yeah. So for sure. For sure. And even more than that, teaching them the skills of what to do. Like when you were talking about your heart racing because you were talking about your exposed person, teaching them the tools of what to do in the moment when they don't know what to do, different ways of putting those in containers to like the stress out of their body and over somewhere else so they can look at it different.
mm,
Things like that. There's lots of tools to do in a group setting.
mm. And
Yeah, for sure. I'd
we
love it.
haven't really talked anything about breath work, but Roxanne
Mhm.
is incredible at breath work.
Yeah,
I've had sessions with
great.
her at some retreats, and they're powerful.
So, yep. And that can be done in groups too. 1,000 might be a lot unless they can all lay down somewhere, but we can do meditations in that way too, of everybody sitting in their seat too.
Awesome. Roxanne, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative.
Yeah.
It's been
Well,
beautiful.
thanks, you guys. Thanks for having me. It was really fun to be here, and we talked about some really deep, important things.
Thank you. You're a beautiful
Welcome.
soul, Roxanne,
Yeah.
and
Thanks, you
truly
guys.
excited to get to know you. I know that Steph's known you for years and thinks
Yeah.
the world of you, but
This is true.
glad
Good.
that I was finally admitted to the club.
Yeah. Well, it was nice meeting you, Seth, and thanks for having me on, you guys.
And cut. It's a wrap.
Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for sharing this episode with that one friend who needs this conversation. Thank you for all the ratings, the reviews, the comments, and especially the support. We so appreciate you.
Now, if you want to take a peek behind the curtain and be the first to know about special previews, backstage updates here at the show, and especially some private collection content that doesn't come out in the regular show,
Be sure to join our VIP community at theforeveryoungshow.com.